Okay, let me know when we're good. All right, we're live, it looks like. All right, the time is now 7:04 p.m. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Adequate notice of this meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by transmitting the meeting notice to the official newspapers, providing a copy of the agenda to newspapers, and posting a copy of the agenda at Borough Hall. Just before we move forward with the flag salute, I want to note for the record and for those present today in the public, Council President Liebtag is joining us by phone, as is Councilwoman Warner. They had conflicts that made them unavailable to be here tonight, as it wasn't one of our normal, first Wednesday of the month meetings, but I appreciate them joining us by telephone. So with that, we will move forward with the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sam, would you please proceed forward with the roll call?
Councilmember Doherty,
Here.
Council President Lee-Tag. Here. Councilmember O'Brien,
Here.
Councilmember Updike, Councilmember Warner. Here.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we'll move on to our first public comment portion of the meeting. The first public comment portion is limited to 5 minutes. If you have any comments in excess of 5 minutes, there's a second portion of public comments at the end of the agenda. So with that, would anyone from the public like to address the governing body this evening? If so, please just state your name for the record. Okay, not hearing any public comments, we'll move on to our first item of business, which is approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting and executive session meeting minutes of January 2nd, 2025. Is there a motion to adopt those minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Michelle.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Not here. Any roll call, please.
Councilmember Doherty,
Abstain.
Council President Lee-Tag.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien,
Yes.
Councilmember Warner.
Abstain.
I didn't hear what you
Let's
said.
abstain.
She
That
was
was-
here on the second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent a revised agenda out. They may not have.
Okay.
Uh,
had to abstain, right?
Yes.
Then
Yep.
It should be.
Why don't you just carry it to the next?
All right, we're gonna carry these minutes to the next meeting for now, just because it's quorum issues. We'll move on to resolutions. The first resolution before the governing body tonight is Resolution 2025-35, accepting the Department of Community Affairs Affordable Housing Allocation. We do have Austin with us from Colliers Engineering, who's filling in tonight for Darlene Green, who had a conflict. At this time, I'd ask for a motion to adopt that resolution, and we'll have some discussion.
So moved, John.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. That was Councilman O'Brien, second. Discussion of the matter?
Do you want to go first, Austin, or do you want me to go? Whatever, however you want to do it. Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
As you may remember, on March 20th of 2024, the governor signed an amendment to the New Jersey Fair Housing Act. That amendment it was the preparatory work for the fourth round affordable housing and the new rules and what would govern the fourth round, which begins on July 1st of 2025 through June 30th of 2035. One of the items that the legislation, the amendment to the Fair Housing Act required is that the Department of Community Affairs adopt the affordable housing allocation for each municipality. And basically the way it works is the DCA determine a number based upon the formula established in the statute for the state. And then it's broken down into the region. You're in Region 3, Huntington, Somerset, and Middlesex County. And so you begin with a statewide number, it's filtered down to a regional number, Region 3, and then it's further filtered down to by each municipality in the region. Essentially, there are three factors that the statute requires be considered in allocation. One is the equalized non-residential value, one is an income capacity, and one is the land capacity. And as part of what you have here is Ms. Green did prepare a memorandum dated January 7th, 2025, with the fourth round allocation factors. The law also provides that the DCA had to accomplish this or to allocate the numbers by October 20th. They did so, and on October 18th, they sent out a report with all of the allocations for all of the municipalities in the state. And then municipalities have until Friday to either accept, reject, or modify those numbers, and there are different consequences. There was also something called, established by the statute, the Affordable Housing Alternate Dispute Resolution Program, sometimes referred to as the program. And that's through the courts. It's essentially retired judges. I think it's 6 of them. And the lead judge, the chair of that, is Thomas Miller, who was the assignment judge in Somerset County, and Somerset and Hunterton are joined together. And he is the lead or the chair of that group. So he's familiar with Hunterton County, he's familiar with Frenchtown. So by Friday, you have to adopt a resolution of whether or not you want to accept or seek to modify those numbers. Ms. Green did an analysis of the 3 factors because essentially a lot of this is demographic information or tax assessor information, and then there is the land capacity factor. There are 2 numbers that the borough got. One is called a present need number, which is the rehabilitation share that the borough has, meaning you have an older stock of homes and the number that was allocated to you is 11 present need. Okay, so that means 11 units would be subject to rehabilitation in the town. And there are several grants, primarily through the county and the CDBG grant program, that people can apply for a loan. It's a non-interest bearing loan. It's forgiven after either 10 or 20 years, depending upon the period. And so that's the first component. That number, if the borough desires, can be adjusted downward, not now, but during the next phase of this, it can be adjusted down by doing a survey. Typically, it's called a windshield survey, and it really is a lot like a drive-by appraisal that you would have. So your present need number is 11. Your prospective need, which is the new construction, is 22. Okay, and primarily that number, as Ms. Green explains, that number is really driven by the, I believe, the income factor, because the borough has a higher income than the region. Okay, and so Ms. Green looked at the 3 factors: land capacity, income, and non-residential increases in non-residential assessments. And she looked at the analysis that the Department of Community Affairs has done. That analysis is all in the report or on their website. And she concludes that the driving force for your 22 units is the income capacity of the municipality. Okay. In her review of the DCA analysis, because the way the law is structured, it doesn't really give you a lot of leeway. You're really trying to determine whether or not the Department of Community Affairs is followed the statutory formula, calculated it correctly, and then with respect to the land capacity, making sure that land was included, that was properly included. For example, you may have heard 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that there was a similar analysis done, but so there are some famous examples of medians in the parkway being considered as land eligible for development. The front of the Rawhide or the whatever not Rawhide, Rawway Prison, or the one in Isling was considered as developable. So that's the one of these factors that has the highest capacity or capability of having an error in it. The non-residential increases in assessment, that's basically looking at tax assessment records and what's referred to as the mod 4 that contains all of this information. Then the land capacity, and then the income capacity, which is again demographic information. So the one of the key things, although you're giving an assessment or an allocation of 22 units, the land capacity per analysis is that it is 0 developable acres. Okay, so there is the ability to plan for that, and that's what the next step is a planning process, which is between now and June 30th of this year. You have to have a new housing element and fair share plan and in place, and that's adopting by the planning board, endorsed by you, and it has to have all the supporting ordinances. So overall, that's a very bird's eye view of this. The second factor of this is that at the middle of December, I think December 14th, the Office of Administrative Courts issued a directive saying that because the program is in the courts, you got to gain entry into the court system. So the Office of Administrative Office of the Courts issued a directive that says every municipality to gain access to the portal or to the program has to file a lawsuit, which is a declaratory judgment lawsuit. And that also has to be done either by January 31st or 48 hours from the time you adopt this resolution. So the resolution before you accepts the DCA allocation. It does not seek to modify it or to change it. It accepts it, and you do that by accepting Ms. Green's report, and then it authorizes me to file a draft declaratory judgment that you have seen with the program. Now, why do you want to be in the program? Because that gives you immunity from builder's remedy lawsuits. And as long as you're in the program meeting the requirements, you're immune from builder's remedy lawsuits. And as long as you're meeting the deadlines, and this is, as I said, the first significant deadline is Friday, the 31st. And then the next significant deadline is the housing element and fair share plan. That is done in conjunction, or really it's the planning board that does it. And the council endorses it. So there will be some back and forth between Darlene and the planning board, and a hearing is required on that. Although not on your agenda tonight, also part of your package is a proposal from Darlene Green to prepare the housing element and fair share plan. It's not on the agenda tonight, but you should put it on, hopefully for the next agenda, only because you may not believe this, but Darlene is very busy. She's got a lot of other towns to do this kind of thing, and it's a lot of work. So the sooner you award the contract for her to do this work, she can get started on it. Because you miss a deadline, you lose immunity. It's as simple as that. You miss the deadline, you lose immunity. So that's generally an overview. Boston, do you want to add anything to that, or subtract or correct anything that I said?
I think you said it perfectly, so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
If
that was good.
If then you can ask questions of the council. And although a public hearing is not required on this, because this is a resolution, my recommendation is before you adopt it and take a roll call, open it to the public and if there's anyone interested.
Okay. Are there any questions from the governing body first?
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. Because the way I look at it, this is essentially a technical procedure at this point. We have looked at what the DCA did and, we didn't find any mistakes. Therefore, basically, we have to accept it. Whether or not we think the allocation is appropriate or realistic is a separate issue, and we can't turn around and say, hey, we don't like this, because we don't think it's realistic. That's not the point of this resolution. Is that?
Yes, I mean, it is very technical, driven by the formulas
Yeah.
in the statute.
Right.
You could reject it, but you'd have to have a principled
Yes.
reason for it. It's
Right.
not, I don't like it.
Right. And
It's either a defect in the
Right.
calculation or
Yeah.
some other error that is picked up, but I don't like it is not
Yeah.
sufficient reason.
understood, and that's my understanding. Okay,
And then when you finish this, then you start the next process, which is the planning,
yeah,
which includes, Ms. Green also has prepared a vacant land analysis,
Mhm.
which will play a role in determining the compliance mechanisms, if any. You may not have, at the end of the process, you may not have anything to do. You do have some leftover obligation from the third round, so that will have to be
Yeah.
planned for.
Mhm.
But it's all part of a comprehensive examination. So you are correct. This is more technical. The next part on the housing element and fair share plan is the more substantive, where you get
Right.
to look at the town
right,
and what you do.
yeah.
Okay.
I raise that because I want people to understand that the idea of rejecting this isn't really, it's not something we can reject, it's something not that we're interested in rejecting it, I think we've been very proactive as a municipality with respect to affordable housing.
And there's a side benefit, it's a very technical, legal technicality, and that is you accept the number and you have a presumption of validity. So if someone wants to overturn it, the bar is higher within the program because your
Yeah.
number is presumed to be valid.
I mean, it's a separate issue of how on earth are we gonna achieve this goal, because
That's the next part.
that's the next part.
Mhm.
And I guess the only other question I had, Mayor, is the proposal, is it on the agenda for next week?
We will put it on next week's agenda for consideration, yeah.
Yeah.
Was waiting on the CFO because we have to do, we're on our
Yeah.
temp budget,
You
Okay,
have
And
to-
and she has to be able to certify funds for it.
yeah, okay, is she gonna be able to do that? Cause
Yeah,
I
most
wouldn't wanna
likely,
wait till March. Is what I'm
we'll
thinking.
probably end up special emergency temp two, which will get us up to 50% of funding last year, which will enable her to
Okay,
be able to fund that proposal.
yeah, that's a good point.
But she couldn't do the CAF this month, I don't think.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
when I talked to her and the clerk was also aware of it,
Yeah.
when I exchanged email, she pointed that out to me.
Yeah,
And I said, well, the sooner the better,
Yeah.
but you've got to do whatever.
we have to do another appropriation to take us to 50% of 2024's budget number, which will enable her to move account numbers around to issue a certification.
And that's
of available funds.
perfectly acceptable
Yeah.
because you're working on a temporary budget. You don't have a final budget yet
Yeah.
that's been adopted. So and then you roll that into your permanent budget.
Okay, great.
The only other thing I was just gonna note, I thought that the rehabilitation portion is kind of interesting, and it's something we should probably work with our planner on.
Yeah,
Because in addition to the CDBG funds, there's also local funds, and there's ways you could help homeowners in the community that maybe want to stay if they're income qualified, and we could help them with rehabilitation of property. Now, there's a lien that goes with it,
Yeah.
but it can be a win-win